how can we characterize the farmers? So farmers believe that temperatures have already increased. So most of the farmers, at least in 2006, or the study that was reported in 2006, believe that temperature and rainfall changed. Those that had the greatest experience were those that are mostly likely to identify that trend, that there is a trend, and those that has higher education were those who were able to make at least one adaptation move, either changing the crops or introducing irrigation technology. And of course, we found important abilities and differences between farmers living in different regions and countries, mainly because of the institutions that exist in those countries. And this is a very important aspect. Farmers, just an anecdote, perceive barriers to adaptation, mainly because of poverty and inability to borrow and invest in improved technologies. So this is basically a look at the past. And here is something that I wanted to suggest on my own. So based on everything that we already know, and I just put together a short slide, a simple slide, where we see two generations of farmers, you know, the new generation, and maybe the generation that is going to lead, and hopefully going to lead the agricultural sector in Africa, that has better technology, better education, better awareness of what they should and could do. So I put together that suggested a TUA, and this is a course of action that I think, and I hope, and I want to propose to move forward in order to make Africa able better to cope with climate change. First of all, it is education. And we see signs that this is a trend that takes place in Africa. So all these five. Technology, of course, but technology cannot come without institutions. So institutions to help adopt new technologies and perform the technologies in the right way. Extension, agricultural extension, to exchange information and know-how between farmers in one region, in one country, to others, and awareness. So let's go just quickly, because I am reaching the end of my allotted time. So when we look at indexes or measures of increased education, we can see that in Africa, the higher education gross enrollment by region, or in Africa, let's just look at Africa, there was the highest increase between 1970 and 1913. This is where I had data for, compared to all the other countries or other regions in the world, which is an important indication of what is going on. Also, in relative terms, it is lower than others, but it started from a lower point. So this is about education. Second, about technology. So again, there are many ways to measure technological progress in a country. I found that the share of households in Africa with a computer at home is a meaningful technological index, and we can see that it doubled from 3.7 to 7.7% of the households have now in 2019, not now, but in 2019, a computer at home. This is an important indicator suggesting that more people are exposed to different types of technologies and information. So let's move now to institutions. So technology might be there, but not adopted without supporting institutions. So again, there are many ways to measure institutional progress of a country. And I selected one that had also the longest history over time. And it is also an index that tells us the time required to start a business. This is a measure of institutional strengths. The more or the shorter it takes to establish a business in the country, the higher or the stronger are the institutions. And what we can see is the following. First of all, of course, Africa, compared to the world, started with much longer time needed to establish a business in terms of days. But we can see that, first of all, the trend is negative, which means that it becomes shorter. And also the gap between Africa and the rest of the world shrinks, which is a very important sign. So again, institutions. Extension. I tried very hard to find, I know that there are many studies, and I read them, especially in Nigeria, about the role of agricultural extension in improving agricultural productivity, but I couldn't find anything that will cover the entire continent. So I decided to take that picture that shows women farmers coming to a plot, an experimental plot, and learning about some advances that have been found by the researchers. And again, very important picture. Most of the farmers, or I don't know if these are farmers or not, but those ladies are certainly farmers, and these are the human capital of the agricultural sector in Africa. You know, young and women. And generational awareness, I call it. And there is an indication that the young generation in Africa is much more aware of climate change, of water scarcity, and of wrongdoing of their governments and other governments related to climate change. And this is an important index or parameter in the movement of Africa towards better dealing with climate change. Let me also, final concept that I found it after I finished my presentation, and I thought that it is an important concept. So FLID, FLID, which stands for Farmers-Led Irrigation Development. And this is a concept that is implemented now by the World Bank, and I just learned about it after my presentation was ready, but I decided that it is important, and it is addressing challenges in feeding growing population, improving nutrition, adapting to climate change, and reducing global poverty. And what is important is that the way that that concept works, it works by farmers alone or as a collective take lead in the establishment, improvement, or expansion of irrigated agriculture. So it comes, what we call, from root grass. And so far, there are 15 of 40 countries in Africa that FLEED has taken steps from either diagnostic or operation. And this is a very important move forward in terms of putting multilateral investments into Africa. And anyone, and I suggested to GB to jump on it and to try to put a PhD student to understand what is the difference between the countries in that FLEED project. So this is it.
Okay, thank you very much for your very inspiring presentation. My question is, I think the one important thing which seems to me missing is market for farmers. Because farmers should be able to access to the good market so they can sell the product. So I think that's a very important issue. Maybe that's part of the institution. Well,
absolutely. And also I didn't mention it specifically. Markets are institutions. So developing appropriate markets for traditional products and for new products is a key for improved performance of the agricultural sector, not only in Africa, but anywhere. Certainly, yeah. The last question.
Found that enormous, inspiring, and generative talk, but I'm wondering about the need to provide local supplies of agricultural products, not for global commerce so much as to feed growing populations here in Africa. When you ask the question, can agriculture survive? Could the people survive without the agriculture? And what is the kind of need and future of locally based and locally produced and used agriculture?
So I think that your question is related somehow to Chieko's question, and I have not intended to leave you with the impression that we talk now about global markets. I was talking about market when talking about institutions and exchange of information. It is, first of all, locally, either in the region or in the country. So institutions to improve the transportation of products from one place to another, or from the production to the marketplace, storage, to keep the quality well enough. So, yeah, I also, we are aware that in some countries in Africa, especially during severe, prolonged drought that led to famine, the international markets kick in, not in terms of markets, but in terms of donations.